Okay, so this is the color section. I'll run quickly through a slideshow just to remind everybody of the images. Oh, sorry, that's the black and white. Okay, gone too far. Just okay. So this is the first one, and this is called David.
Okay, thank you. I'll just tell you how I'm looking at these images. I've got what you're projecting is on one screen in front of me, and I've got the images you sent me, opening bridge, on a second screen next to me. And I'll be looking at them on and judging from my screen, because I have found that stuff sent over Zoom does tend to degrade a bit. And I found myself once or twice talking about defects. And then I look across at my screen and the defects aren't there, and they're in actual fact they're being introduced by the compression as it's sent over Zoom. So I will, if I find a defect, if I mention a defect, I'm actually seeing it on my separate screen. It's not the degradation that's coming over through the video streaming. Okay, having said that, our first image, David, a selection of images tonight entitled Studio. And Studio, to me, having worked for many years as a studio photographer, I instantly think people. But in actual fact, the studio is any workroom where you might photograph anything at all. And we've got examples of various different, we have people, but we have still life, and we have various different interpretations of things. So I think that's rather fun. I started off thinking, oh, it's all going to be portraits, and then suddenly, oh, there's still life, and there's different things that aren't portraits. So that made it an interesting selection to look through. Our first image tonight, David, I have to admire the name, of course. And I quite like the pose. I like the sort of almost enigmatic smile. I like the slight tilt of the head. I always find eyes that are completely horizontal, slightly confrontational. There's a slight tilt of the head creates a feeling of engaging in conversation, in contact between us and the sitter. So I quite like that. The lighting is reasonably arranged. We've got shadows coming under the nose. One side of the face is well lit, and then the other side less. It's quite a good lighting scheme for a male portrait. I do find, however, that the whole thing is underlit or underexposed, your presentation is it could do with about a stop to a stop and a half more light being shown. There's obviously plenty of light there. I think it is just whether you underexposed at the taking stage or whether you thought I'll go a bit low key and you've reduced the exposure. But I do feel that it improves by lightening it quite considerably. One advantage of having the images for a week or so beforehand is that I can tweak them. I can play with them in Photoshop, or I do everything in Adobe Camera Raw, and just a couple of seconds tweaking, and this lifts out from the screen, whereas at the moment it is disappearing into the background. So it's almost there. It just needs a little bit more work with the exposure to draw me in to engage further with him. But we'll start with 14.
That's 14 marks, and that was Ken Sykes. Right, just bear with me a bit while I
Morris?
History. Oh, right. Next one is Sophia.
I got a thing saying, right, your internet connection is unstable. I don't know if that's...
I'm all right here. You're breaking up.
Okay, that's not a good thing. I've never had that happen before. Announce it. Sophia, yeah?
Yeah.
We can hear you, David.
Somebody wave if you can hear me. Right. Some of you can. Okay. I like this. I like the bold crop. Really tall, narrow, just concentrating on a part of the face. I like the way you've used the hair to frame the nose, just giving us half of the mouth, if you like, most of the nose, and one eye. And it's all about that beautiful eye. So the makeup works. I don't know how much input you had with the makeup, but that does work very well. I like the bold crop. I like the slightly different approach. The lighting completely different to the first one. It's quite bright. It's more subtle and certainly much more suiting to a female face, and perhaps a little bright down the bridge of the nose, but not so much that it's overpowering. So I'll ask you to hold this one back for me, please.
So that's a hold back. So the next one is a winning hand.
Yes, I thought this was quite fun when I first looked at it. I quite like the idea of, everybody's going to do portraits, so let's do something different. So I commend you for that idea. Now, I talked with the first one about the lighting being a bit subdued. Here, the lighting is quite powerful. It's almost overpowering. The whites on the playing cards are pretty close to being at maximum. They're not quite. There is just a hint of detail in the surface of the card, but there's all sorts of stuff going on in the background. You've got marks on your background cloth or whatever it is, and you've got the line where the upright meets the tabletop, and just subduing the light a little and just pulling the black sliders down a little, all of a sudden, all that mess in the background disappears. So just a few tweaks with the exposure and with the black slider can make a huge difference. And what I then felt was a slightly tighter crop. There's a lot of forearm creeping in up to the wrist, and there's a lot of light on that. So I just crop in a little from the right-hand side, crop up to just where the wrist starts to rise up into the thumb, crop a little more off the top. It pushes the ace into the third position. Slight vignette, so the hand isn't as bright, and it takes on a completely different look. And I've actually got both versions of it on my screen, and where I've just tweaked it a little bit, it's probably would earn a couple more points. But where we are now, it's a little bit lacking, so we'll give that one a 15.
15 points, a winning hand. That was Bob Fish. Just bear with me because I'm in the wrong folder here. Okay, next one, Abigail.
Yeah, I like this very much. I like the pose. I like the way you've arranged the girl in the image. I like the use of these shapes. I'm picturing letters with lights on, the sort of thing that I used to hate when I found them when I was shooting weddings, and you've got these hideous things that spelt out love across the back of the room, and they were challenging to use, generally speaking. But here you've got a good sympathetic background. It works with the colour. Overall, the colour palette is very even. Nothing jars, nothing stands out, nothing screams for my attention. So there's a lovely peaceful harmony to it. So I like that. The way you've posed her between the two works really, really well. And the way you've just, whether it was you that directed or whether she did it herself, the way her body leans over towards the what I'm going to take to be the O, and then her elbow propping on it, that creates a beautiful shape. The arm coming up, the head resting gently on the extended fingers there. She's not creasing anything, she's not putting any pressure on it. It's very gentle, it's very subtle, and there's a lovely overall smoothness of texture, but you kept maximum detail in the face. Lovely, soft, gentle lighting across the face, little highlight on the lips, that's nice. I think it works very well indeed. So would you hold that one back for me, please?
Attitude.
Yes, she certainly does come across as having attitude. And there are bits of this that I really, really like. I love the makeup. As you might guess from my t-shirt, I'm a bit sort of into Viking stuff and runes and all that sort of thing. So there's an instant appeal there for me with this sort of makeup. Love the vibrant hair. I mean, that is definitely electric green, isn't it? It's super bright. I like how you've separated out from the background. There's a lovely depth to it, a real sense of three dimension. You've moved her away from the background, and you picked exactly the right aperture. Everything about her, the face, the hair, the shoulders, is beautifully sharp. Where for me it falls off is such a large area. The hand coming towards us is out of focus. It's just extending beyond the plane of focus, and I find that a shame. If you could have got that, perhaps if she hadn't brought her hand quite as far away from her body, and the shapes that her fingers are creating are interesting, but it's blurred. And I think it's part of the message, and I think that really would improve with being sharp. I did play with cropping. I went in a little tighter, lost the hand completely, and the face is strong enough to get away with doing that. But your message is about attitude, and the hand is part of that. But I just feel that bit could be sharper. I still enjoy it very much, but I think touch more depth of field or the hand a little closer to the body, it would have moved it up into being held back, as is attitude gets a 17.
17 marks. That's George Fiddler. Next one, Gerbera on white.
Yeah, I think this is very well done. It's I see a lot of still life. I think I've probably seen more still life in the last 11 months that we've not been allowed out to play than ever in the last 30 years of judging, because we go cold turkey if we haven't used our cameras, don't we? So we're looking for things to do, and people are experimenting with still life, tabletop, and what have you. And some of it is quite indifferent, and some of it is quite well done. I would put this into the latter category. It's well done. You've thought about the construction of the picture, the balance of the picture, the shape of the flowers, the arrangement of the three in the triangle, and the shape and size of the vase. It's a nice solid round earthenware looking thing. It's not delicate. It matches the sort of chunkiness of the flowers that you're showing us. So overall that works very well. It's very sharp, well controlled, aperture, everything's sharp that needs to be. And then I quite like the few petals that you've I can't see that they've actually fallen off one of those flowers, but I'll believe perhaps they did, and you've just arranged them in the foreground there, which just gives another little point of interest. I like your background. The white you haven't overpowered. There is a hint of shadows to ground the image onto the white base, and there is a hint of where your background curves away behind. So yeah, overall very well executed, and we'll keep that one back, please.
Next one then is Rosie.
Okay, now Rosie is a pretty young lady, isn't she? I love long blonde hair. I used to be married to a woman with long blonde hair. Cost me an absolute fortune because it was all fake, but there you go. Is this real? Is this can't even think what they call it now. Hair extensions. Doesn't really matter. It's not obvious. It's obvious that she's not a natural blonde, and that's not being critical. It actually adds a little something to the picture, and it explains the darker eyebrows as well, which contrasts with the very bright blonde of the hair. So I quite like your lighting scheme. It's there's enough shadow to give some depth to the face, and the nose protrudes from the face, but it's not heavily shadowed. It's quite pleasant there. The eyes are well lit, just a single catch light in the eye. So we've got a fairly flat front lighting, but it's not inappropriate for this style of photography. So I quite enjoy that. What I do find for me is the angle that you've taken it at, looking. Sorry, my daughter tried to ring. I'll just turn that off. I always try to avoid shooting up into a lady's face. And here we're looking up. We're looking up her nostrils, we're looking under her chin. It's making her it's not a pleasing angle. I don't feel, unless she's an Amazon and you know, she coming over as sort of powerful and dominating, and I don't think that was your intention here. So I find the angle just slightly sets that one down for me. So Rosie gets a 16.
16 marks. That's Keith Cawthorne. Next one is Ready for the Party.
Sorry, just excuse me, my daughter won't let me go, so I'm just going to tell her I'm in a meeting. Last night I was interrupted. My Tesco's delivery was 2 hours late. That turned up halfway through judging, so I do apologise. That should shut that up.
Right, this is Ready for the Party.
Ready for the party. Yes. Okay. Is this our same lady as we had? I think it might be. Here we've got. She sat down, and we're looking at her pretty much on a level, eye to eye, and I find this much more comfortable. I like the sort of laid back pose. She looks relaxed, she looks comfortable. She does look as if she's, well, I'm ready. Come on, why aren't you ready? Yes, going to the party. Got the feather boa thing wrapped around her arms. Quite like that. Like the way you've separated out from the background. I think that's quite pleasant. And all that's working quite well. Overall, as a bit of a red cast, I felt that just shift the slider towards blue a little bit, and it takes on a more, the skin tones in particular take on a more natural look. But I think your lighting scheme here has worked quite nicely, and your directorial skills, if you like, in getting her to pose in quite a relaxed position. And I like what, again, if you directed it or whether she does it naturally. But very often with this sort of thing, hands can be an issue, and here the hands look quite natural. So there's quite a lot that I like about it. I do feel that the colour balance could be tweaked to improve it a little bit. So again, a 16.
16 marks. That's Ivan Sedgwick. And this is Lauren.
Yeah, I love this. Very strong, striking image. I like the way you've used the space around her. I like the shapes that you created, particularly the arm coming up and over the head. And again, very well controlled hands. They're interesting shapes, but they're not, what's the word? They can be ugly. The hands, if you get the hands wrong, they can be very ugly, but here they look quite relaxed, quite natural. So you're doing well there. The choice of jewellery on the bracelet there, that's pleasant. I think it would reduce the image if that wasn't there. That's quite important. But the eyes, love that. Love the feeling of a breeze blowing across, making her hair fly out to one side, and her body is tilted in that direction as well. So overall, that works very well. And then a very sympathetic, simple background. It's just there supporting her. It doesn't demand any attention whatsoever. So this is the sort of thing you would see in a fashion magazine, isn't it? This sort of style. And then you've just finished it off with the white key line. And key lines can make a big difference, or they can absolutely kill an image. And here, I think, yeah, you're about right. It's subtle, it's not too strong, but it just does frame off the image. So, Lauren, I would like you to hold back again for me, please.
Katrina.
Okay, well, a completely different character, isn't she? we had the sort of the very girly, feminine, soft image before of Lauren, and now Katrina is coming over as a much more powerful character, if you like. When I first saw it, it sort of my thought was Rosie the Riveter has been riveted, and I do wonder why girls demand all this ironwork in their faces. We see a lot of it now, and I'm not convinced that I mean, she's a pretty girl. Does she need a ring in her nose? But that's her choice. But it says something about her character, and I like the vibrancy of the red hair, the mixture of the red and black. I like the bow in the top, which works in conjunction with the similar pattern and colour tones in her shirt. So yeah, overall I think that works very well. There's a lovely amount of detail in the eyes. That's you've really concentrated on that, and she's spent a lot of time with her mascara there, emphasizing the eyes. And it's a bold choice of lighting. I mean, I talked about softer lighting for female faces, but she's a character that can cope with this bolder lighting choice, the quite deep shadows across to one side of the face. It does give it a great depth, and yeah, I like that. There's an intensity of in that gaze, a real sense of communicating. So Katrina gets a 17.
17 marks. That's Keith Cawthorne. Keeping the lid on it.
I thought this was fun. In competitions, sometimes you see pictures of children and you think that's a family picture, but it's not a competition picture. But I don't feel that about this one. I think it fits very well into, you know, the studio. This has been done in the studio. You've posed them, you've arranged it, and they're having fun. And that was always my benchmark when I was working with kids in the studio. If they didn't enjoy it, I'd failed. It had to be fun. And so I used to say to the brides, okay, we're gonna have fun. And that comes through here. There's a lovely sense of you, the photographer, and these two kids having a whale of a time. I don't know what you've said to them, but it's really got a reaction from that little girl. I can imagine this as a fairly large canvas on mum and dad's wall. I think it's successful in that respect. As a studio exercise, the lighting's worked, the faces are clear, they're alive. We don't need any more background. There's just enough light to separate the young chap, his dark jumper. There's just enough on that sleeve and on his shoulder just to pull him out for the background. So yeah, I think that's worked very well, and I'm sure they'll remember that. We had fun when we went to the studio with whoever it was, keeping the lid on it. Yes, it's an enjoyable image, which also gets a 17.
17 marks. That's David Livesey. This is Sophie.
Okay, I was thinking we'd had a Sophie, but the other one was a Sophia, wasn't it? A Sophie.
I think it was the same person.
Is it the same girl?
I think so.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I think you're probably right. Yes, I can still see it. Yeah, Sophie, Sophia. Yeah, spelt differently in the titles. Okay. I like this background. I like the texture that you use here, and this wall behind her. And again, it's sympathetic in terms of the colour of the background and the colour of our sitter. It works with the hair. It works with the colour of her lipstick. There's nothing that screams for attention. So, and that's what a good background should do. It should support without screaming for attention. So It's another one I quite enjoy the pose. We're probably about the right height. We certainly don't want to go any lower. We're about looking into her eyes, and she's staring straight back at us. She's quite comfortable, I feel, with the photographer. And you probably said, don't smile, because you don't have to be smiling in every picture. I don't think I ever said to a sitter, smile. I might tell them a joke, and then that would create a reaction. But if you say smile, it's false. If I look at the screen now, nobody's smiling. That could be my fault. But smiling isn't actually something we do naturally, is it? It's something that happens as a reaction. And here we've got this more serious look. So I like that. I like the tilt of the head. I like the emphasis on the eyes. I do feel that there is scope for just a little post-processing, just to lift the shadows around the center of her face. The forehead is quite brightly lit. The upper part of her body and the top of her shoulders quite brightly lit, but the face is in more shadow. And I just played with a little localized adjustment and just brought out a little more light on the face and in the eyes, and added a bit more life into the face. So if it's yours, I do encourage you to just have a little tweak, just to bring the face up, maybe reduce the brightness on the upper portion of the body and on the shoulder there, because that's the brightest part of the picture, and we really want that light in the face. But I quite enjoy it as it is. It might have scored an extra mark with a little bit more work, but as it is, I'd still like to hold it back, please.
Next one. Please don't put me on the naughty list.
Yeah, the title appealed to me because you're probably not surprised to hear I am actually Father Christmas. And so, oops, my chair's just collapsed underneath me. There we go. So the title made me smile before I'd even looked at it. And then when I looked at it, I thought, wow, yeah, this is attention grabbing for sure. I love the work that you've done in creating a story in this picture. The background, you know, I've said about simple backgrounds and supporting. This is not simple, but it does support your idea. The skull behind this creature from hell. I think I was married to her once, and you know, there's evil in the eyes. I just love the whole concept of this picture. I think it's been very well. The initial work in taking the girl, you've lit it, you've posed her, and you created something very interesting. And then I'm assuming you did the face makeup later, but perhaps it was done before you photographed it. I don't know. I can envisage it both ways. I've seen girls that paint this sort of stuff on their faces, and I've seen it where it's been done in post-production. But it doesn't matter how it was done. It's the fact is it works, and it puts me in mind of, I'm very much into heavy metal and rock music, and a band I saw November last year, no, the one before we were locked away. She does this sort of stuff. The lead singer does this sort of makeup on stage. She's a crazy psycho, and this put me in mind of her straight away. Absolutely love it. The key line just finishes it off. I think, you know, if you've got dark surrounds, dark backgrounds, and it's going to be projected on a black screen, your key line, your white key line, or just slightly off white, don't make it too bright, just says, this is where my picture ends. The rest of the blackness is the screen background. So I think it works incredibly well. We'll keep that one back, please.
the gambler.
Okay, is this the chap that had the what chap? It's a girl, isn't it? Is this the person that had the winning hand back at the beginning? I wonder. Have we now gone round the other side? I like the pose. I think you've come up with a story there. She's concentrating on the hand. She's not interacting with us at all, and we feel we're sat the other side of the table, and we're wondering what card she's got, and what's she going to play, and is she going to shout snap before we do? I like the way her head is resting on her hand. That works quite well. I like the way the light is playing across her hair. It's quite dark hair, but it's reflective. So it's creating some interesting shapes going on up there. And there is just enough separation out from the background, so I'm perfectly happy with that. It's another one where I would like to see a little bit more light introduced into the face, either a reflector held low down, or it can be done just with a little localized levels adjustment. Just lift the shadows in her face a little bit, because that's where our point of contact is, in that face. We want to get the emotion that she's reading into those cards. So yeah, I enjoy it, like the pose, just could do with a little bit more light. So the gambler gets 17.
17 marks, Joyce Wenyon. Next one, pure sex.
It gets your attention, doesn't it? Everything about it says, look. The colour, the pose, the body language, the lettering, the flames, it's all there. Very sultry look on the girl's face. The shiny red PVC, the sort of the cut of the dress. It's all a little suggestive. It's not OTT, but it's you created a message, and I think it comes over very well. I think maybe the hair is the hair on the right hand side is a little bit I don't know what's gone on there. It's sort of smoothed out a bit. I'm assuming that you cut this out and put it onto another background because the lighting doesn't quite match. There are imperfections, but overall I think it works really well. It grabs my attention. It makes me want to look around. It makes me want to examine how you've done it. It keeps me looking. So we'll keep it back to have another look at, please.
Thinking, wish he'd hurry up.
Wish he'd hurry up. It's usually the girls are waiting for, isn't it, fellas? I mean, it takes us 5 minutes to get ready, and it takes them 3 weeks. But yeah, this is another lady with all the ironmongery in her face. She obviously likes it. I'm not sure I'd ask her out on a date. Perhaps that's why she's waiting for me. But overall, I find it a little overpowering. The colour is startling. And I don't mind it too much in the red top, but I do find that the intensity of colour in the background is just overpowering. It's demanding attention. It's pulling me away from the young lady. So I find that one unsettling. I also find I'd take a little off the bottom. I don't mind the little triangle of flesh on the left, but then we just get that tiny little bit that appears in the middle, and it just pulls my attention. There's too many things drawing me away from what I should be. Really, it should be about her face. The upper part of the body, under the neck, the top of the fingers there on the hand, all very, very bright. Could definitely do with toning down. So yeah, there are a number of things that I think I would just alter in that image. It's certainly powerful. The pose works, but for me, the light and the colour is just not quite right. So wish he'd hurry up. You're probably thinking the same. I wish he'd hurry up and remember what he scored it at 16.
16 marks, Anthony Rhodes. Girl in the red hat.
Okay, this one is another one that grabs your attention. A little bit different. It's funny, this is about the 4th steampunk image I've seen this week. They're very popular. I think we've got some more later on tonight as well. My first impression, I looked at it and thought, oh, cut that out, put it in a different background. And then I looked around, I thought, no, actually the background looks, it looks real. You can see if you look through the bits of the lace of the sleeves, you can see the background. So either you've done a really, really good job of cutting it out, or that is where she is. It's believable. So it goes with the scene. Quite happy with that. She looks perfectly happy, perfectly content to be photographed. She's not quite looking at us, as probably another photographer stood on your right shoulder and she's looking at them instead of at you, but that doesn't matter. I quite like the candles. I would have just cropped the 4th one, the last one, out, because it's right, absolutely bang on the edge. And I'd have taken that one out, so we just got the ascending line of 3 on the edge there. And it's another one where it's as low as you want to be. You can't afford to go any lower, because it's not being very flattering to her neck under the chin. If you can get just slightly higher, it becomes more flattering to ladies. So that one gets a 16.
16 marks, that's George Fiddler. So you think I'm joking?
Yeah, this is another one of the steampunks that I was thinking I've seen a lot of them this week. I'm used to seeing them out in the street. I'm used to seeing them mainly in Whitby, although I think there's one in Lincoln as well. So probably for you, you'll be, if you shoot them outdoors, you'll be at Lincoln. But here you brought them into the studio. And the difficulty with these types of backdrops is the dilemma of, do I iron it or do I live with the crinkles? And then what do I do when they move around on it and they wrinkle it up, and the background becomes quite intrusive? So I think I would have just spent a little more time smoothing out, particularly under his feet and in front of him. And I would have brought them slightly further away from the upright part of the background, so I could then use narrower depth of field to push the creases and wrinkles out of focus. And I can tell you, it is if you've got a 20-foot by 10-foot background, ironing them is no joke, because I've done it on several occasions, and it really is something to be avoided. So I would try softening by using a different aperture and by getting as smooth as possible to start with. Having said that, I shouldn't be distracted that much by the background, but that's what happened with this one. Moving on to the people, yes, I like the pose, I like the lighting. I think it's suited to the thing, the theme, the steampunk, sort of almost Victorian H.G. Wells sort of theme. Yeah, that's quite nice. And the expressions of the two people, they obviously a pair. They react with each other. His sort of hangdog look, and her, yeah, okay, you are going to behave yourself. That all comes over quite nicely. So that's quite fun. So that gets a I wanted to give it more, but I just felt the background was a little intrusive. So I give it 17.
17 marks, Anthony Rhodes. Pensive.
Okay, another very pretty girl, and I like what she's done with her makeup on the eyes. She's really emphasized her eyes, and you have in positioning them in the frame. For me, it's just those two fingers on the right hand side coming up almost disjointed that let it down. And I really would be happier without them there. Talked about hands, you know, they can make a huge difference. They can look ugly. You've done quite well with the one under her chin. It's a fairly natural sort of thing, isn't it, to be pulling down on the collar. So I'm perfectly happy with that. It's just the odd two fingers that over onto one side. And I did play with cropping it and taking quite a slice off so it comes down and loses that the back of her hair and loses those fingers and moves her nose onto the line of the third on the other side of the image. And it to me it was stronger, but it's your image, but you must decide whether you want the fingers there or not. For me, they spoil it, they draw my attention, and the hand is getting a tremendous amount of light under her chin. So I would just consider toning that part down. You really want the brightest light to be on the face, because that's where we're drawn. But where you've got more light on the hand, it keeps pulling the eye down there. So even just a subtle vignette, just to tone those highlights down, could improve. But I like the depth that you've created with the narrow depth of field, with the brick background behind, beautifully defocused. It gives it a nice sense of depth. So Pensive is another 16.
16 marks, that's Ken Sykes. Skull.
Okay, this is a very striking image. It certainly doesn't fit with, this is a pretty portrait image, does it? This is something quite different. This is still life, tabletop, whatever you want to call it. It's well thought out, well executed. Perhaps this is a print worker, somebody who would normally be presenting their work in the print format, because they've gone for the extra presentation, which you would associate with a print. You've given it a mount, you've given it a key line, and then you've given it the white border. And I think it works. It adds a little something else to the image. But overall, I love the tones, love the richness of that sort of orangey red leather. I like the effect of the magnifying glass on part of it, and then the skull. And you've lit it from one side, but you controlled the exposure very well. The shadows could have blocked up, but they haven't. I can still see detail in the leatherwork underneath, and the back of the skull where the light's coming from could have burnt out, but again, you just held it within the realms of the contrast ratio. So very well thought out. Like the crop, like the whole effect of that one. So we'll keep that one, please.
Those who served.
Those who serve. Yes, this is. I actually have exactly the same certificate from my father and his collection of medals for the 39-45 war. So there was a little sense of deja vu, if you like, because it's not long since they all came out of the box when my grandson was doing some work on the period at school and borrowed his granddad's medals and paybook and all the rest of his paraphernalia. So yes, there's a nice little message there. In terms of still life, it's not that challenging. It's quite two-dimensional. There's just a hint of shadow, so you've given some depth to it, but they're not very, deep object. So you've done all that you can with it to tell a story, record these things. Perhaps a little more contrast on the dog tag, so you could actually read the writing. I spent some time trying to read it. I think I could make out, was it Fisher or something like that, and just to finish off the story. But yeah, I think it's quite nice, and certainly worth keeping as a record of these things, because they are important memories of probably a family member. What did that one get? It's not exciting, it's not as challenging as the work it's up against. So that one gets a 15.
15 marks. That's Bob Fish. And this is the last one in the colour section. White Tulip.
Tulip. The composition, I quite like it. It's fairly cliched, you could say, you know, bringing the stem up out of the corner, bringing the bulb of the tulip onto around about the upper third. And in that sense, it works. The addition of the water droplets simulating dew just give it a little bit of extra sparkle. So yes, it succeeds from there, but it's a bit like the first one. For me, I think it's about a stop underexposed. There's a lot of heavy shadow. I've been imagining a white tulip to look white, whereas this is quite grey, quite dark, and just more exposure lifts it up. And I might just have flipped it the other way, so it came in from the left and travelled across to the right. I think that's a slightly more comfortable composition, but overall I feel it lacks light. So that one gets a 14.
14 marks. That's Mary Fish. That one. And I escape out of there. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 holdbacks. How do you want to do this, Dave? Do you want to do the 18s first, or just go through them from the top to the bottom?
What's easiest for you?
It doesn't matter either way. Doesn't matter.
We'll just start with the first one then.
Right. So Sophia.
Sophie gets an 18.
18. So that's Steve Parrish. Well done, Steve. The next one is Abigail.
That gets a 19.
That's myself. Gerbera on white.
That gets an 18.
Did you say 18? 1-8?
Yeah.
Okay, that's Mary Fish. This is Lauren.
Lauren gets a 19.
19, that's Joyce Wenyon. And this is Sophie.
That's an 18.
18, that's Ivan Sedgwick. Please don't put me on the naughty list.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm probably going to have nightmares about it for some time, but that one gets a 20.
Right. Pure Sex.
That gets an 18.
18. That's Steve Parrish. And the last one is Scott.
19.
19. Okay, and that's Dave Livesey. So that leaves that one, which is myself, Alan Keane.
Very cracking.
Thank you very much.
Was the makeup there, or was it applied in post?
She actually drove to the studio wearing that.
Brilliant. Excellent. Yeah.
Congratulations, Alan,
Thank you very much.
and thank you very much, David. It's now 8:30. You want 10 minutes?
10 minutes then, and I'll stop
We'll
sharing.
come back. We'll do the black and whites.
Okay.
20 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, we have 20 mono images now, so I'll start again by running quickly through each of the 20, and then we'll get back to the start. Right. Okay, so start off with the first one, Out of the Hat.
Okay, this is fun. Yes, I enjoyed this. It's another one that it's an unusual format. The vertical panorama aspect ratio works really well in this case. And again, the use of the white key line. I'm guessing that's probably 2 to 3 pixels. I might have gone with a 1. And I don't do a full white, a 255 white. I do about a 245. So it's the white key line isn't the brightest white in the picture, but we get away with it here. It's fun. It's well executed. It does create this idea of not so much the magician pulling the rabbit out of the hat, but the rabbit's exploded from the hat. It's a jet-propelled rabbit, and it's great fun. And I love the sign on there. It's magic. It's a fun image. I can see this again working very well as a print. It's the sort of thing, if it was in your annual exhibition as a print, people will gather around and look at it to enjoy it. So we'll start off with a 17.
17 marks, that's Anthony Rhodes. Okay. Next one, Tree Frog.
Frog, yeah. I have a friend that keeps these things as pets. It's not something I feel I'd want to go and stroke or give a cuddle to, but they're interesting. The monochrome here has concentrated on the textures rather than the colours. Some of these frogs can be incredibly intense colours, oranges and greens and whatever, but you've decided colour isn't important. This, I'm representing it in monochrome to bring out its texture, its shape, and the different shades of grey throughout its body, which has come over quite well. I quite like the vignette. It could perhaps be a little more subtle. It's going quite dark in the corners, but it does serve to concentrate in on the frog. The only point where I feel it just falls down a little bit is the eye where it's blending into the twig. I mean, the eye that's facing us is very clear, but the bump where the other eye is, it's kind of losing itself. It's blending into the twig beyond, and that's maybe just if he'd have shouted or whistled or whatever you do to attract frogs, and he just rotated his head a little bit back towards you, that might have saved that happening. But yeah, I quite enjoy the tone, so we'll give that one 16.
16 marks, Mary Fish. Misty. Sorry.
I had to look at this a couple of times when I first did a very fast run through. What I tend to do with these when I get them is I do a very fast run through and tag the ones that grab my attention. And as I did a fast run through, I thought, oh no, it's gone a bit too far. But then when I went back and spent a little more time looking, I started to appreciate what was going on here and the real subtleness of the effect that you created. It may be gone a little OTT in the hair on top, perhaps just darkening that down help it, because that is completely blurred out. But when I pull myself away from that and look at the shape of her neck, the way her neck drops down and her chin comes down, and that subtle shadow under the chin, you've done really well to give that separation. That there is a depth there. We get a sense of 3 dimension there. I love the way the shoulder drops down, the tilt of the head, and that piece of hair that just drops down beside the nose, creating a really interesting shape, picking up the light. And I don't need her eyes to be open. I think that would actually spoil the mood of the picture. So I think you've gone for the right look. It's misty, it's gentle, it's soft, it's contemplative, if that's the right word. She's not interacting with us, she's in her own little world. So yeah, I think if I had 10 seconds to press a button, I might not score it very high, but having spent a little more time appreciating it, I gave it 17.
17. So that's Steve Parrish. Garlic bulb 2.
Okay, these do have a lovely texture, don't they? The garlic bulb, the outer skin is almost like paper, and a translucence and a lovely texture. And then you've got this sort of pearly bulbs within, which has a completely contrasting texture. So you've done quite a good job of showing that contrast. We've got quite a strong light on the top, and that's bringing out the shape, the form, the texture of the outer covering. Not quite so much light getting inside the bulb to show the individual cloves, but you've made up for that by breaking one out and laying it on one side. So yeah, I think the composition works quite well. The light falling on the top of that separated clove, if you put your pointer over it and read off on the histogram scale, it is very close to being full white. There's not a great deal of tone texture left in there, but other than that, there's a good range of textures all the way through. So yeah, I think it works quite well. It is a little dark on the lower portion, quite solid black. It becomes a little bit muddy there. The darker tones in the foreground become just a little muddied, but overall quite pleasing. So we give Garlic Bulb 2 16.
That's Mary Fish. Glass Stack.
Yeah, another one. At first run through, I thought, oh, quite busy, but then start spending a little more time looking at it, and this really does lend itself to monochrome. And again, I look at this and I think This is somebody that would normally present this as a nice high gloss print. It's got wonderful, deep, satisfying blacks. The whites, although they're bright, none of it goes up to the full scale of 255. It's all contained nicely. And there's just this lovely series of patterns running through. As at first I thought it's rather busy, but then I started looking deeper into it and really enjoyed it. I like the presentation. I think that's well done. And so it's definitely one I could see as a very satisfying print. And you presented it, so it makes me feel that it looks as if it, you've spent some time thinking about presentation, which has added to it. So I like that. That gets a 17.
17, Dave Livesey. An officer and a gentleman.
Yes, I like this. There's another one of our steampunk fellows, and here we haven't got the problems that we had in the earlier one with the rather messy background. Here you added a different background afterwards, or you moved him a good distance away from the background, so it drops well out of the focus, plane of focus. So it's just there as a support. And yes, I think it works. The swirls in the background. I can imagine an industrial element behind him, the steam and smoke and things going on. It puts him in the right sort of perspective. So I like what you've done there. Lovely clarity. I mean, this is beautifully sharp. If you were that way inclined, you could count every hair in his beard. And his eyes beautifully sharp. Every thread in his clothing is beautifully defined. It is an absolutely gorgeous monochrome image. It's got a very, very satisfying range of tones, and I will hold it on back, please.
Sorry. Cheeky Chappy.
Yeah, he's got an infectious grin, hasn't he? This is another one that I'm sure the parents have a copy of in a frame somewhere. And he's got that wonderful innocence in his face and a lovely smile that says, yes, I'm really, really lovable. I'm really, really well behaved while you're watching me. But look out if I'm left alone. Yeah, there's mischief in there, isn't there? Love the dimples, love the little hair curling up there. Your lighting has been well executed. You've brought out the texture in his face, you brought out the shape, but there aren't any hard shadows anywhere on his face. So you've come up with a good lighting scheme for this sort of thing. And again, presentation. I'm impressed actually by the number of your images tonight where thought has been given to presentation. And I think it does make a difference. We're reduced to only working with digital images at the moment because of the pandemic. I am a print worker at heart, and presentation preparation has always been important. And it's really interesting to see you doing this sort of thing. It adds to the image no end. So we'll keep that one as well, please.
Looking into the light.
Okay, your title suggests that there should be light, but what I'm looking at is actually quite dark. There's not strong light anywhere on her face, not in her eyes. The strongest light is actually under her chin, on the side of the hair there. And the eye tends to go straight to that patch. You will always go to the brightest area in the image. And her face itself is a little grey and muddy, and it's sort of harking back to days in the darkroom. It's some of you are old enough to remember darkrooms, aren't you? It has the look of a print that's been whipped out of the developer before it's finished fully developing. It's a little soft, I don't find the lighting that satisfying. And again, we're looking up at her, and I don't find that the most pleasing way to approach a female model. It makes her chest area, her shoulders very big, very wide, and again we've got this sort of looking under the chin, looking up the nostrils. That one for me just it falls down on a number of aspects. So that gets 15.
That's 15 marks, George Fiddler. Lauren Mono.
Yeah, another pretty girl. Have we seen her before? I'm not sure, but they all seem to have this lovely long blonde hair, which I enjoy. I love working with girls with long hair because you can use it as part of your composition. Imagine her with a short bob. You wouldn't have the benefit of that sweep of hair coming round over her shoulder and creating a shape that matches the extended forearm coming up back up to the other side of her face. So that creates an interesting shape, quite like that. There is plenty of light falling onto her face. The side of her hair is well lit, but it's not burnt. But there's plenty of light getting into the side of her face closest to us. The eyes are brightly lit. That's nice. And then slightly less light the other side of the nose, so it gives depth. So I like all that. I like what's going on there. I like the sort of the shadowy effect coming in from the right hand side. It looks as if you've gone sort of almost a front light, and then you've got a second light source or a window or something coming in from the right, which is just creating that line of light down her forearm, which is adding something to the picture. So I like that. What I would perhaps have changed if I was working with this young lady is that thin white strap. It digging into her shoulders, digging into her back, and it's picking up a lot of light. It's quite attention grabbing. So I might just have been tempted to say, would you mind just dropping the strap down so it wasn't cutting into you? Maybe if it was hanging loose down on the arm, it would create a more interesting shape, rather than at the moment it's demanding attention and just slightly deforming. But if I can draw myself away from that and just concentrate on the eyes and the face and the wonderful texture you've got in the hair, it's really rather nice. So that one gets a 16.
16 marks, Ivan Sedgwick. Schlumbergerer. I think it's Christmas cactus.
Read it out, not me.
It's called a Christmas cactus, I think.
Is it really? Oh, right. Okay. That's something. Sometimes when you view something in monochrome, you haven't got the extra clue of the colour to give you an idea what it was. And last night I made probably the biggest boob of my life. I had this lovely shot of this bird with its neck curled round and tucked in under its wing, and to me it was a sleeping swan. And I talked about, swan should be a bit brighter white, blah blah blah, and the owner said actually it's a flamingo. If it had had the colour, I'd have known it wasn't a swan. If this had the colour, I might have recognised it as a Christmas cactus because they're sort of quite strong red. But in monochrome, what you've gone for is the texture, and these things do have kind of interesting texture. They're sort of almost waxy, aren't they, the petals? And you've caught that. You've got the texture, you've got the shine, the sheen. That's all come over quite well. The shapes are quite nice. The white background or the light background is quite nice. There are hints of various tones in there, so it's not just a plain white. That's quite attractive. The difficulty when you're tackling something like this is, where do I place my crop? At what point do I cut into the plant? And that's where it just perhaps could improve a little. I don't mind that we've cut into the petal that goes out of the top, because you cut well into it. It looks absolutely deliberate. Didn't want to show you that. I've cut through it. That's fine. Well, petal on the right hand side in the middle just goes out of the end of the picture. You just cropped through a tiny bit of it, and I think if you'd included that so it was complete, it would just finish it off, and it would be that one looked as if I missed it by accident rather than I didn't want to show it. The rest of it, yeah, it all fits in the composition quite well, and it's got a nice satisfying range of tones. So that goes 16.
16, Ken Sachs. Looking wistful.
Another beautifully crisp, sharp, well lit portrait. Perfectly chosen lighting scheme for this style of image. The face that's been well lived in. You know, there's a lot of character there, isn't there? There's a lot of laugh lines. There's a lot of experience built into that face. Yes, I think you've done a very good job of lighting it. It's lovely textures. Nothing is too bright. The side of the nose is the brightest area, but it's contained, it's controlled. And then the rest of it is just a lovely range of tones, very well exposed, very well controlled, and absolutely crisp, sharp on the whiskers, on the nose, on the eyes, and on the forehead. And then it just starts dropping off as we get back to his ears. They're dropping out of the plane of focus, the back of his collar. We don't need that. It's about that face, and I think you've created a striking portrait there. Yes, he does look wistful, but we'll look at that one again, please.
Next one, Always the Bridesmaid.
Yeah, I think this is really strong, very attractive young lady, very attractive lighting scheme again. You've picked the lighting scheme that works for this pose. You've got just enough shadow under the nose, under the lip, under the chin to give it definition, to give it depth. Wonderful texture you've brought out in the hair, and again, you know, imagine her with short hair would be fighting with a big shoulder pointing towards us, catching all the light, but that hair cascading over it takes all those problems away. So that works really, really well. And then we've got those amazing eyes. I love how much clarity you've got into the eyes, the eyelashes, the eyebrows, and the hair. But the skin, you've softened a little, but it's not gone too far. Some of the bits of face softening software go way too much and give it a plastic look. But no, I think this works really, really well. So the only thing that just pulled my attention a little bit is the two eyes that seem to be looking at us from the background. You're now going, what's he looking at? But it looks like a giant caterpillar or something. I think there's some berries that are catching the light, and it's just like something sitting there with two big eyes looking at me. And once you see it, it's like, what's that? What's that over there? And that I would have taken that out if it was mine. But I love the sort of swirly, the background. Really like what you've done, how you've emphasised her eyes, and I think the title works with the look on her face. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. There's a slight wistfulness, a slight I wish it was my turn. I think comes over very well. So we'll keep that one back, please.
Girl in uniform.
Okay, I've been watching, I'm a bit of a military history buff. I've been watching a lot on Amazon of Russian-made war films. And this instantly made me think of the lady soldiers in the great war that fought for the Russian forces. The sort of uniform made me feel that it's a little bit baggy. It's not very flattering. It's not particularly a feminine uniform, but it just took me there. And you know, you have a clue what I'm talking about. So you're not seeing the same thing, but that's where I went when I looked at it. Love the smile. Yes, she looks happy. She looks perfectly content to be in front of the camera. I have a small criticism with the sunglasses, and much with the, as I said, with the petal. It looks accidental, the crop there through the sunglasses, and you've got that bright reflection on the rim of the sunglass right against the edge. Now, I think if you'd included the whole of that lens of the sunglass, you get away with it, or you could consider a much stronger crop coming up. So we lose the sunglasses coming in on the right-hand side, so it moves her a little bit more over onto the third, and then it becomes a very powerful triangle composition, which does work quite well. So I do enjoy it. I do like it. I think the lighting works fairly well. It's not quite as gentle as some of the other schemes. It was a little bit more deep shadows around the mouth and the nose. But for me, it's the sunglasses again. It's that bright bit that's pulling my eye, that's drawing me away from the main subject. So that one gets a 16.
Hey, marks George Fiddler. Spare a penny.
Yes, I like the story here. It's not just a portrait, is it? There's a social message here, which I think is quite important. He looks the part. Sometimes you see these things and think, yeah, it's a setup. All the clothes are too new, and but there is a sense of maybe we could be with a homeless person here. It's his hat looks a bit new, but perhaps somebody's been generous and given him a nice new one. I like the sepia toning. I quite enjoy the body language. I think that works as part of his story. I like that the light hasn't gone too crazy on that enamel mug. The white enamel mug's very, very reflective, but it's not overly bright. The brightest part of it is the back of his hand, which I would tone down a little, and then his face. So I'd bring the hand down so it wasn't brighter than the brightest part on his face. But then, yes, I knew the whole story there, the body language, the shape, the background, everything there works well. So we'll keep that one, please.
This one. Ghost image.
Yes, I thought this was interesting. Again, it's one that didn't grab me on first quick run through. But when I went back and spent a little more time analysing it and trying to count how many images we'd actually got there, because it looked like 2, and then I'm not convinced. I think there's another one in there, and then I almost started to see another face in the shapes in the background, which sort of ghostly coming through there. So yes, I quite like the idea. I like that there aren't any overly bright areas. There are some satisfying blacks. You've got a good overall tonal range, and again, it's something I could see printed. I wouldn't print this on a glossy. I'd print this on a matte or an art paper, and it's got an element of intrigue. So where are we? Ghost image gets a 17.
17 marks Anthony Rose. Listening.
Okay, this is very modern. What we expect of our youth nowadays is they're all going to be engrossed in with their phones, and they're not really engaging with us. And if they're engaging with each other, they're not talking directly. They're doing it via their phones or tablets or whatever. So yes, it's a message for our time. It's got a lovely rich range of tones in it. I quite enjoy that. and nothing too powerfully bright. And I like the way you've not allowed that hand holding the phone, you've not allowed that to become too bright. That's well controlled and matches the tones in his face. I might just pull down the brightness in that white stripe or bright stripe in his sleeve, and maybe just a couple of brighter bits right on the edge of the brickwork. But yes, there is a sense of being in a sort of fairly rundown area of town, a bit derelict, and I think that suits the young man that you've got there. Lots of detail in his hair, that's very well done. Overall, yes, quite nicely exposed. And we give that one 16.
16 marks, Ivan Sedgwick. Hoodie.
Okay, now I'm not sure. I think this is probably the same guy. Whether it's the same photographer or not, I don't know. We seem to be in a similar situation, but there's something about this that I'm looking at the bright line or the white line that surrounds him. I suspect you cut this one out and placed it on this background, and your mask is not quite as tight as it should be, and there is definitely an outline that runs all the way around the figure, which is unfortunate. I like the idea, you know, of putting into this environment. It's quite a harsh environment and quite a harsh lighting scheme playing across his face. Very dark areas, very bright areas, very high contrast. So it's a confrontational stare. It's not a comfortable pose, is it? It's what was it called? Hoodie, wasn't it? This slightly threatening element coming over, but I just feel that it falls down there with the montaging technique. So I give that one 14.
14 marks, Keith Cawthorne. Agapanthus seed head.
Okay, an interesting shape in these seed heads, and it's a very contrasty, stark, almost graphic image. It's not what you would call a faithful natural rendering of it. It's not a picture that says this is what this seed head looks like and you can put it in a book and you'll always recognize it from that. I think what you've done is gone somewhere else with it and reduced it to it's not posterized, but it's not far off. There's not that many shades of grey in there. There's maybe 6 to 8 shades, levels of black, white, and maybe 6 shades of grey in there. So it becomes very stark, very contrasting. And it is a treatment that can work very, very well, but with a slightly simpler subject. I think there's an awful lot of content which is not coming over because of the starkness of the treatment. So I gave that one 15.
15 marks, Ken Sykes. Nicole.
Yes, Nicole is very much a traditional approach to feminine portraiture. She's a very traditional looking girl, isn't she? She's gone for a softer style of makeup, a softer hair style. She hasn't got all the facial jewellery, the piercings and what have you that we saw in some of the others. This is a more sort of, well, I don't know, 50s, 60s sort of look. The fur, I'm assuming probably fake fur now because you're not allowed to wear real fur, are you? And the pearl necklace and the pearl earrings all has a lovely period feel to it, which you've accentuated by the subtle toning, which I congratulate you on. A lot of people now think sepia toning means glowing orange. But here there's just enough, just a subtle, very gentle lighting scheme that you've used. There's not a powerful highlight in the eyes, there's not powerful shadows on the face, just enough to bring out the shape. I like the tilt of the head, and I like the deliberate crop. We don't have to have all the hair in. If you crop deliberately, you can get away with cutting in like this, that's fine. It's when you have little wisps going out that it becomes less satisfying. But this is cropped absolutely spot on. Love the tilt of the head, and I imagine her having quite bright red lipstick on, and the way you convert it to monochrome, you've used the sliders to accentuate the tones in the lips. So we'll keep that one, please.
And this is the last one, curves.
You could say this is the end, couldn't you? Yeah, I love this sort of image. I mean, over the years, I've had a lot of fun photographing young ladies with no clothes on. And the female form is quite magnificent, and you don't have to show all of it. You can just pick these wonderful sensuous curves, which you then accentuated with the way you've let the light play across. I mean, you've got the shape there. You can ruin it by putting the wrong lighting on it, but you haven't. You've got lovely tone throughout the whole range there, but you've accentuated the musculature running down the backbone there, the curves of the buttocks, and then I like the way you just allowed this piece of material, this drape, just to come in, catch some light and reflect some light back in. I think if that had just been black there, it wouldn't have been as satisfying. If it had just been a plain white background, it wouldn't have been as satisfying. It's the textures that are in there and the light that's sparkling. I think that works very well. So we'll keep that one, please.
So we've got 7 holdbacks, I think.
That's what I make it, yep.
So from the top again?
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way to do it, isn't it, rather than dashing up and down. So what was this one? This was number 6, wasn't it?
Officer and a gentleman.
Yeah, this gets a 19, very high quality.
19, that's me. Cheeky Chappy.
Chappy, he gets an 18.
18, that's Dave Livesey. Looking Wistful.
Wistful also gets an 18.
18, that's Keith Cawthorne. Always the Bridesmaid.
That's going to be my 20.
Yep.
Despite the caterpillar thing. Did anybody else see it now I pointed it out?
Yeah. Spare a Penny.
Spare a Penny gets 18.
18, that's Joyce Wenyon. Nicole.
Nicole gets an 18.
That's Joyce Wenyon. And Curves.
Curves gets a 19.
19, that's Steve Parrish. So if I just jump out of there and go to that, put that in there. So can you pick the image of the night from those two, please?
Yeah, they're very different, aren't they? They're both superbly executed. Really like both of them, but I think the color image just edges in front because of the storytelling, because of the drama, because of the impact, and just the thought process that's gone into putting it together. That gets my vote as the best overall.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. I didn't say who that one was. That was mine as well. So I've got,
So you did vote well.
got that one, the colour and the Muller.
Right, okay.
Oh, thank you very much, Dave.
Yeah, you spend too long in the studio. You spend.
I tell you, I'm missing it.
Congratulations, Alan, and well done.
Well done, Alan.
Very well deserved.